Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I wanted to talk to you about your most precious asset. That asset is your children. Many of us want to raise empowered children. We want them to be financially responsible. We want our children to become assets in our lives and not liabilities. Well, a child is it's like raising a child is like growing something in a garden. It's like cooking food. If you don't plan with the right recipe, if you don't watch how the food is cooking, you don't pay attention to what happens. It burns, or it tastes bad, or it just comes out nasty and rotten if you don't use good ingredients, etc. So with your child, how you raise your child, the things you teach your child about money will determine whether or not your child becomes an asset to your life as you get older or a liability. And not just an asset or a liability to themselves, but also to other people. So I was asked to make a short series to explain some key concepts behind the idea of raising financially responsible children, or what that means, how you might go about doing that. So I've collapsed it into five key things I want you to remember. I want you to keep these in mind as it pertains to raising your kids to be what you want them to be financially. The first thing you want to do is buy your children assets at an early age. That means stocks and bonds. It means things like maybe some government bonds and things like that. My grandmother used to buy me CDs and stuff when I was a kid, and I didn't know what CDs were or what bonds were until my grandmother got them for me. And so years later, when I finished my PhD and became a finance professor, now here I am teaching. I've taught thousands of college students and all this other stuff. My grandmother was still a person I would go and talk to about money. Because my grandmother Felicia, rest her soul, loved her to death. She was a single mother who raised five kids by herself and didn't have any help, and basically was always had perfect credit, always had plenty of money in the bank, owned her own car, never had to borrow money from anybody. And I remember noticing how her financial value system was built on principles that were instilled in her at an early age. And so, one thing my grandmother always did was she bought me those savings bonds every Christmas, every birthday. Never got toys from her, didn't get Air Jordans, didn't get all that silliness. She would get me savings bonds. And that actually took me down the pathway of understanding ownership and the accumulation of assets. It also gave me some money when I went away to college. So when your child, the minute you know that you're pregnant, is when you want to start preparing your child for their financial future. So buy your children assets early. The other thing that's interesting too is that if you buy your child, stocks or something like that at an early age, they're going to want to track those stocks. They're going to want to look at the stock market and say, "Oh, mommy, I made $10 today," or my shares of Disney did better today," and it'll get them. It'll open the door to other conversations about how money works, where money comes from. So maybe you can bring them to me after a while, and and by the time they get to me, they've already been introduced to these ideas by you, and then you and I working together can educate your kids to prepare them to have a strong financial future. Uh, the second thing that you want to do as a parent, if you want to properly educate your child when it comes to money, is don't let them believe that money grows on trees. You see, a lot of parents have this very strange approach to money with their kids. They really think that their job is to give their children everything, the things they never had, and give them whatever they want and spoil them rotten. And I'll tell you this: I've never really seen anything or any person, any rotten thing that was a good thing, right? Nothing rotten is ever good. So when you rot your children by spoiling them, what you're doing, unfortunately, is you're kind of making them weak. You're creating a false sense of reality. If you're buying them whatever they want, or not making them work for it, they go into the world thinking, "Oh, well, this is the way the world works. Money just pops up whenever I need it. I just ask somebody, they're gonna give it to me." And then they get in the real world and they get their butts kicked. And so, what I would say to you as a parent is make your child work for everything they get. And there's no point where it starts too early. Your child can be 3, 4 years old. They say so, but about 3 or 4, your child's going to figure out wait a minute. If I have these things called dollar bills, that means I can buy candy. As soon as they make that connection, then boom, money has value. At that point, you make the connection between work and reward. So your child comes to you and they say, Mommy, the ice cream truck's coming. Can I have $5? You say, sure, but you have to sweep the floor after you get your money. Or after you get the ice cream, come back in. I got some work for you to do. Or if you got time, you say, do your work, do some chores around the house, and I'll give you some money. I do that with my kids. My kids, they used to be really frustrated about it. I'm talking about my daughter, my adopted daughter, and my godchildren. That's when I say my kids. That's what I'm talking about. But I'm the father for them. And what I always do, and they're in their 20s now. They don't get a penny from me based on charity or welfare. I let them know, look, I'm not a welfare office, and you are not a welfare recipient. Your job is to work for whatever you get. So if you want something from me, don't come begging. Give me a proposal. Tell me what are you gonna do to earn this money? What's the partnership gonna look like? Are you gonna? I need some help on the job. I'm running a company. Do you want to come in and work for a while? If you work, oh, you need $200. Okay, how about this? I'll give you $400 if you come in and you do this job for me for a while. And so a lot of times, I mean, they're your kids, so you don't kick their butts and make them work like slaves unless you want to. I think that's actually okay. I think pushing your children hard makes them stronger because you're pushing them in a cradle of love. So it may be tough on them, but tough things tend to survive in this world. It's very difficult to be strong enough to make it through all the difficulties of life without having gone through some difficult experiences. That's why students that go to the toughest schools end up being the smartest. Those who go to the military guys who go to and women who go to the toughest training facilities have the most skill. So you are your child's training facility as they prepare for this thing called life. Third thing you want to do with your children is this. Um, every black child in America must know how to run their own business. You have to know how to run your own business for the same reasons you'd want to know how to grow and cook your own food. Um, One of the things that we've been trained to do as black people over hundreds of years is to believe that our solemn goal in life is to go to school, work hard, so we can go work for a white person. That's not a new tradition. That's something that's been around since slavery. Slavery was not that long ago. Our grandparents could have been slaves, people our age. And so, when you look at our mindset when it comes to how we make money, the way many of us think about making money, which comes from childhood, we learned this from our parents, is we think, okay, if I have some skills, I go to some corporation that's not owned by people who look like me. It's owned by somebody else's community, and we go in and we go to these jobs and we just work hard. And because we work hard, money's just gonna come from somewhere, right? Maybe because we think it comes from Jesus or something, right? The money just pops up because we worked hard and we put in the hours, and I get a paycheck, and this is how much you owe me, and that's it. And the problem with that is that it creates a fundamental lack of understanding of how the economic system works, how capitalism works, how America works, and unfortunately how racism kind of works. You see, here's the problem with racism. This is where black people kind of fool ourselves a little bit. Um, we think that we can go work for a company owned by a white man and that he's going to treat us just like he treats other white men. That ain't true. That's just not true. The statistical indicators, and I hate being the bearer of bad news, and I hope I don't sound pessimistic, but the statistical indicators show that clearly in this economic system, black people are not treated the same as whites. Part of it is due to racism. We know racism is real and all that, but part of it is kind of due to human nature as well. Um, most cultural groups show a tendency to support themselves and support each other. If you go to Arab neighborhoods, Indian neighborhoods, Chinese neighborhoods, etc., they tend to buy from each other. They tend to hire each other. They tend to loan each other money. They tend to have each other's back economically. They will fire you before they fire someone who's from their own family or from their own culture. They understand that coalition building is a very important part of your economic survival. So for black people, in order for us to solve our persistent unemployment problem, because our unemployment rate tends to be twice as high as it is for whites, for black people to solve our persistent unemployment problem, we absolutely positively must find a way to create businesses in our communities. We must do that because the thing about it is that another thing statistics show is that when white organizations get to about 6-7% black, the value, the perceived value of those organizations starts to decline. People, for whatever reason, white and black, start to see those organizations as being, lower quality and just not as good, and so there tends to be a barrier at that point. Well, 6 to 7% is not enough to support the masses of black people, and we're 13% of the population. So, even though there are a few of us who get those jobs at those white companies, maybe we get to be that one black manager out of 200 people. The majority of us never get in the door. So your child needs to be prepared for this. He needs to be prepared for what can only be described as economic warfare. The economic warfare shows itself in the sense that that other people are making money off of black people. Other people are manipulating black people to extract wealth from black people. Other people are keeping black people away from specific opportunities. And so, if you come into this situation naive, imagine showing up to a fight and you show up not only without any weapons, you are defenseless, and you don't even know there's a fight. What's going to happen to you? You're going to get hit upside your head. And that's what happens. We go into the economic system and get hit upside our head because we're not even ready for the fight that's coming. We just think, oh, it's kumbaya, racism's over, Jim Crow is done, and civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and Barack Obama, black president, everything's good. And then next thing you know, you've got this advanced degree from some prestigious university, and you can't get a job, and you don't understand why. Everybody tells you you're overqualified, underqualified, you're not the right fit, and they don't explain why. And or you get jobs and the money's not what it should be, or you're watching the white guy down the hall get the promotion that you deserve, or you get the job and maybe even the promotion, but you're so mad and frustrated because you're being mistreated. You're sort of being forced to behave in certain ways, and it makes you uncomfortable, makes you unhappy, makes you miserable. You don't want your child to go through that. A lot of you who are watching this, you know what I'm talking about. You've gone through that. I want you to stop for 1 second and just think. Let's close our eyes for a minute. Just think for a second. Think about one time in your life where you went to work every day and didn't want to be there, where you were being treated unfairly and just going through hell. Just think about that for a second, and then ask yourself: do I really want my kids to feel the pressure of that kind of economic trap? Do I want my kids to go through that? No, you don't. No, you don't. Well, what's the solution? The solution is not to necessarily leave the economic system, right? People talk about just pure separation. I don't think that's really possible for African Americans. I don't think that that's practical at the very least. Even if it's possible, it's not practical. And I don't even know if it's I don't know if it's necessary. I don't know if it's beneficial. No, for two reasons. One, because we own a piece of America. America's our country too. We built this damn thing, and that's where all the money's at. So I think it's okay for us to take a piece of that. Second of all, if you can, some people can make it work. Some people can get in there and mix it up with the white folks and do really well, and that's a beautiful thing too. But here's the key. Here's the key. The key is not separation. The key is having options. You see, if you have options, then that means if your boss comes in there and they disrespect you, or they mistreat you, or you're going to work every day and you hate it, you can go somewhere else. You can leave. And or if you have alternative streams of income, maybe because you have a job and you have two or three side hustles, two or three investments in side hustles, right? You found other hustlers who don't have jobs. I've seen people do this. I've seen people who have a full-time job and they just take their extra money and invest in people who don't have jobs. And they say, okay, well, you don't have a job here. I'm gonna give you money to start this business, doing this thing that I would be doing if I had the time. So I'm gonna go work for the man, and I'm gonna bring that money back. I'm gonna invest in your business. You make money. You give me half. I've got an extra stream of income. I've seen that happen quite often. So teach your children these dynamics, these economic dynamics. We have a campaign actually called Plant the Seed. We're moving it out fall of 2015, so or late fall, early winter, I guess, of 2015. So if you're watching this and it's 2016 or something, you could probably Google it. But if it's not 2016, you can't Google it because it's probably not out there yet. But that's the goal. The goal is for our children to learn economic survival strategies so that they are not left behind, so they are not feeling humiliated, so they are not feeling stressed out, so they're not feeling marginalized. That's the key. Fourth thing, number four, let your children handle their own money at an early age. So that means that if the child needs $20 for a new pair of shoes, $40, 60, whatever they cost, don't say, "Sure, I'll buy you those shoes," and then pull out your credit card and swipe it and pay for the shoes. They're not going to understand that because there's not really a transaction taking place. The whistles aren't connecting. The only thing that's connecting is I ask Daddy for shoes. He pulls out this piece of plastic, and I have nice shoes on my feet. That's all they really get. Here's what you do: you take $60 and you say, "Sure, here you go." After they work for it, right? So here's your $60. Let's go get those shoes you want to get. So they go there, and what's going to happen is you're going to see some bells go off, light bulbs. You're going to see your child suddenly doing things they never did before. They're going to start price comparing. They're going to start wondering if they really want to let the money go, if they want to keep it. They're going to look for cheaper shoes because it was easy for them to waste your money, but it's not easy for them to waste their own money. And that's just true in general for human beings. I do that to this day. Whenever somebody asks me to do something for them that requires a lot of time, first thing I do is I flip it back and I say, "Okay, I'll do that for you, but I need you to do this for me." And the thing I ask them to do requires just as much time as the thing that they asked me to do. And you know what happens? 90% of those people walk away. They say, "Oh, that's okay. I don't need it." Right? Because when it was free, they wanted it badly. But when it suddenly cost them something, they had to make a trade off. Do you understand? So with children, when it comes to money, let your child hold their own money, and they'll love it too. If the earlier you can get your child working and making their own money and holding their own money, they're gonna feel empowered. They're gonna feel responsible. They're gonna feel an empowered child versus a childy child, if you want to call it, or a childish child. An empowered child knows that their presence makes a difference. That if they carry their weight, everyone's better off. That when they're because they're there, other people can depend on them. They can come through for others. Their environment becomes a product of them. They're not products of their environment anymore. But a childish child is one who is simply a product of the environment. They feel they have no control, no ability to change anything. They don't feel that they can make a situation better. They don't feel that they're making a situation worse by extracting resources from other people. And what you'll find is that when you raise your child to be disempowered and to be a childish child, that doesn't go away. That means when they're 25, they'll still come and borrow money from mama, and they won't think about how it affects mama, whether or not mama's struggling because she had to come up with money for them to bail Pookie out of jail for the 18th time. They won't process any of that because they've never been taught that. They'll be 55 years old, 40 years old. I've seen that. I've seen 50-year-old men and women go into their senior citizen parents who are struggling to own a fixed income and borrow money from them because they've always seen their parents as these sorts of rocks of stability that just sprinkle money on them to solve whatever problem they might have happened to create for themselves in their lives at that particular moment. So giving your child money at an early age, assets at an early age, responsibility at an early age, accountability at an early age, that just makes that child more consistent, more reliable, and just an overall more productive human being. That's when you have that child who's 45 or 50 who comes and says, "Mama, is there some way I can help you out?" Versus a child who says, "Mama, I need you to help me out." Right? So those are two different kinds of mindsets. Make sure you breed that mindset. Our children are products of us, whether we like it or not. The last thing, this is pretty straightforward and simple, but this is really important. Make sure you talk to your child about money all the time on a regular basis. Not so much money, but really about freedom, various forms of freedom, economic freedom. How to structure their lives. A lot of kids, they hit adulthood and they're scared. They don't know what it means to be a grown up. They don't know. They just see that, okay, people go to work. They get money. They pay the rent. And that's it. They don't understand how to go about shaping your life, how to go about picking the right career, how to go about acquiring assets, how to buy a home, why credit card companies are designed to rip you off. Talk to your child about some of the things that you're experiencing as it pertains to money. Again, I teach in the Black Wealth Boot Camp and the Black Wealth Academy, so you can bring them to class one day. I have parents that bring their children to my class, and they seem to really like it. So make sure your child is exposed to these things, not so much to a point that they're traumatized. Like if there's no money in the house, you don't want your 8-year-old son to feel like he's got to go out and be a man and sell drugs to bring money home. You don't want to do that. But at the same time, I think letting them see some bills, letting them know, hey, this house ain't free. Let me show you how all this works. Here's how much money I make. Here's how much everything costs. We have to do a budget. This is what we have to spend money on. This is how you get your allowance. This is how you budget your allowance. Things like that. This is how bank loans work. This is how we bought this house. Just very simple ideas that will allow your child to really understand money and financial responsibility. And these little lessons, and one thing you could just do every day with your child is just tell your child every day, every black person should own their own business. Just say it all the time. Every black person should own a business. Every black person should own a business. If you say that all the time, then what will happen is when your child gets to be an adult, they're going to remember that. Because what will happen is the information may not sink in when they're young because they're thinking about other stuff. They're thinking about playing and toys and ice cream and girls or whatever. But when they get to 25 and they're thinking, oh, wait a minute, my life is about to change. I'm about to get married. I'm about to have a baby. I'm out of school now. I need a career. They're going to say, well, what would mama do? What would daddy do? Right? That's what they do. And then they're going to say, oh, I remember every day my father used to say every black person should have his own business. So I think I'm going to have my own business because, my father always said every black person should have their own business. Right? So never underestimate the impact of your wisdom on your child. Expose them to those ideas, and I'll go through everything really quickly. Once again, buy your children assets early. Make sure they earn their own money. Get them started with business at an early age. Let them handle their own money. Talk to them about money, and that piece about owning and running a business, I think, is so important. And also yourself, as you start your business, let your child work with you. Pay them to come work with you. It doesn't matter if they're 3 years old. Pay them to color in the coloring book, and give them a salary for doing that. And then as they get older, they'll ask, and you'll explain it to them, and then you'll see that just becomes a part of how they think, who they are. I've known children. I'll say this, and I'm done talking about this, but I have seen children who grow up not even thinking, not even knowing the concept of having a job. I've literally seen children grow up without even knowing what it means to have a job because their parents didn't have jobs. Mommy was home all day. Daddy was around all the time. He was working, but he wasn't going to work for somebody. He never had a boss. I think it's okay to raise your children in a world where they know that not having a boss is an option. And at that point, you'll see your children will be much happier than we were in our generation. They won't even understand some of the stuff that we gripe about because they won't have to live through that. We've got a chance to create a better generation. Let's go do it. Let's not be afraid. The world is in our hands. That's it. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from the Black Wealth Boot Camp, among other things. So until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. I am gone. Peace.